our programme focuses on outcomes. We're moving towards a payment by result model, which is changing the culture of drug treatment, particularly in the Northwest. I think historically, ACORN has led the field in terms of how we promote the recovery agenda, and we've been one of the leading agencies in the UK in promoting the recovery agenda. This was sort of characterised most visibly by one of the largest recovery conferences in the country in Stockport last year, where over 500 or 600 people turned up, and it was a great event. And we've always advocated real recovery. We've never understood the traditional services belief that switching from one illicit substance to a prescribed substance is any sort of result. And we've struggled with that, and there's been a lack of cooperation with traditional services because of our failure to understand the anathema that many of them have around recovery. So we've always sort of believed in outcome-focused interventions, but I think now the world is catching up with us. We're beginning to be taken on board and taken seriously, and I think largely this is, currently due to a financial collapse and a change in government, which, who could have sort of guessed that, really. The traditional sort of idea of someone who is in treatment, I feel, and this is from many, many years of experience working in the field of addiction, working with statutory agencies as a probation officer and as a social worker. Many, many times I'd go to a prison or be dealing with someone in the community and their families who, let's take the chap in prison for the first instance. On more than one occasion, on very many occasions, I'd visit a prison to see a young man, to write a report or to look at putting together a discharge plan. And I'd be presented with a young man who didn't look that young quite often, who would be quite enthusiastic about themselves and how well they were doing. Quite often they would say, "I'm doing really well, John. I'm on a script of, up to 120 milligrams of methadone." And they were confused quite often why I'd question, their assumption that they were doing well, because they'd been told by drugs workers, by probation officers, by others that they were doing well, that they were doing very well because they were turning up and they were taking our drugs rather than their drugs, and that appeared to be a positive outcome. Everyone appeared to be denying the fact that they were quite often very poor parents. The children were on the at-risk register, that they were ASBO'd. They had ASBO order, they were antisocial, the community regarded them as scum, The relationships with their family, with sort of everyone, had deteriorated to nothing. They were isolated, they were on their own, and they were quite often, this was the tail end of it, and they were in prison, and yet professionals were still telling them that they were doing well. And I'd question this, and lights would come on, and they'd say, "Yeah, do you know what, John? This is rubbish. Why has no one ever told me before that my life is so bad? Why has no one ever said, no, you're not doing well, you're doing absolutely terribly? And recovery is a political movement, it is a political agenda, you know, and there are people who've been written off, and it's not one or two, it's hundreds of thousands of people and their families, and there is a ripple effect to this. You know, social problems throughout the UK, a huge amount of them, you know, large, you know, the majority of children who are in care are there because their parents suffer with addiction problems. We don't do anything with the parents, really, but we take the kids away, and we probably perpetuate that sort of cycle of intergenerational drug use. What I want to do, what we've always done at Acorn, is tell the truth. We tell the truth to people, as ugly as it may be, you know, but telling the truth doesn't hurt people. Telling them lies does. We use the truth as a sort of mainstay of our therapy. What we call an outcome, I'll reiterate this, payment by results or payment on outcomes, we call an outcome 1 year clean and sober without drugs or alcohol, no illicit substances, no prescribed substances, no substances at all, a life clean and drug free. And this is what people want, this is what they ask for, this is what service users ask for. They want to be independent, you know, they don't want to be going to a CDT or a doctor's on a weekly or even daily basis. They want to be able to live fully functioning in society. That's one area, but it's not the only area, because if you stop using drugs, it doesn't make you, that's not the only definition of recovery that we consider. We consider that the behaviours around addiction need to be extinguished. So we consider recovered, or an outcome, is a year absolutely without offending. Offending needs to stop completely. There's 100% crime reduction yield for all the people who've been staying at Acorn over the last 8 years. Nobody, while resident at Acorn House, has ever committed an offence while resident. When they've left, they may have done, but that's actually very few still. There is a real philosophy, you know, of that behaviour has to stop. So absolutely reducing but extinguishing sort of any offences that's an outcome. Sitting on a couch watching television all day, it is not acceptable with us. So another part of the outcome is we expect everyone to be in employment and education within the first year. We've got a new third stage, and we've been given Future Jobs Fund jobs where all of our people who are leaving third stage will enter employment and be paid for 6 months. We've an employment engagement worker who finds placements with local employers, as well as we've some social enterprise schemes ourselves, and we find placements within local authority and the NHS. So everyone leaves our project in a job, in independent accommodation, and the accommodation is second to none. Because if you don't have an aspiration, if you're leaving and you've got somewhere nice to live, you've got a job, it's all about self-esteem, it's all about sort of building it, and that's what we provide. These people are broken, no matter how they present. They might present with lots of bravado, lots of dysfunctional behaviour. When they leave, they leave well.